The World Endurance Championship made their annual trek to the USA and the return to CotA for Lone Star Le Mans. And let me tell you, the action did not disappoint. But this return is somewhat bittersweet for Chip Ganassi Racing, who run the blue number 2 Cadillac Hypercar. That's because Cadillac has chosen not to continue with Chip Ganassi Racing for 2025. So, as Earl Bamber lines up in 3rd position to take the green flag for this 6-hour race, he and teammate Alex Lynn will be looking to finish this collaboration on a high note. But in a field of 18 ultra-competitive hypercars, this will be no easy feat. As Earl Bamber turns onto the front straight, all eyes are on the green flag and the start of this Lone Star Le Mans. Finally, the green flag flies after a quick false start, and the field hurtles down into the tight turn 1 hairpin. As they go up the hill, Earl Bamber is swarmed by hypercars on both sides. Freddie Habsburg in the Alpine goes around the outside as the Ferrari and BMW squeeze past on the inside. Bamber now shuffled down into 6th position after starting in 3rd place. As they make their way into the S's, the field strings into a single file line because you cannot overtake through this section. There's this long right-hander here, and we can see the BMW clobbering the apex curb. Bamber maybe a little bit of oversteer as he goes through that left-hander. We can see the Alpine up front of Freddie Habsburg really understeering through this section, and as they exit the S's, he gets understeer once again. The BMW of Rene Rast is able to sweep past Freddie Habsburg as Bamber looks up the inside as well into this hairpin. Bamber tries to squeeze past, but as they put the power down, Freddie Habsburg gets a good exit. Looking on board with Whitman just behind, we can see the Cadillac and the Alpine going side by side down this long back straight. Bamber has a slight advantage, but that Alpine is strong around the outside. As they hit the braking zone for this tight left-hander, they make contact, and Bamber is sent off the road, nearly hitting Whitman, who has to take avoiding action in the 15 BMW. Bamber rejoins the circuit and actually makes a position up on the Alpine, but loses 2 to the number 15 BMW and the number 93 French-made hypercar. Through this tight left-hander, we can see Bamber takes a narrow entry and is forced wide by Fred Makovecki and the number 5 Porsche, who's able to squeeze past. And we can see in the mirror, the Toyota is now hunting down this Cadillac as well. Conway flashing his lights as Bamber makes his way through the fast left-hander, letting the number 2 car know that he wants past. And as Makovecki pulls into the pit lane, Bamber eases on the throttle as he exits the final corner and makes his way onto the front straight, now dropped down to 7th position after starting in 3rd place, with the number 7 Toyota of Mike Conway chasing close behind as they both catch up to the number 93 9X8 hypercar into turn 1. It's a really tricky corner. As you come over that crest, you lose grip on the exit and come down through this fast, sweeping right-hander before entering the S's. And we can see that 9X8 up front struggling for grip through this high-speed section. They added a rear wing to that car this season after struggling without one last season. But unfortunately for that French hypercar team, they haven't had much additional success with the addition of that rear wing. And as they exit the S's, we can see Bamber closing in on Nico Müller. And as they come down the hill, they encounter their first LMGT3 traffic now that we're about 15 minutes into this race. And we can see one of the big issues with that 9X8 is its inability to put the power down coming out of these low-speed corners. Down this long straight, as the V8 sings in our ears, Bamber is fully in the draft of Nico Müller. Bamber pokes his nose to the inside, but Müller does not react. We can see, though, how much that 9X8 struggles through the low-speed corner. Bamber able to close in so much through these tight, twisty sections. Through this long right-hander, Müller takes a wider line and is not able to put the power down. He has to hold a really tight line through this double apex left-hander. And Bamber now is on the offensive, putting pressure on Nico Müller. Through this really long right-hander, we can see the additional performance of this Cadillac and that 9X8 just struggling for grip as Nico Müller understeers wide. As they exit the penultimate corner to come back onto the front straight, we can see traffic for Nico Müller up front in the shape of a Lexus GT3 car. That compromises Mueller's exit, and Bamber is now fully tucked in behind this 9X8 going down the front straight. And as they go up the hill, Mueller defends to the inside. Bamber goes for the wide line around the outside of this hairpin. But Conway goes around the inside of both of them and gets the double overtake down through the fast right-hander. We can see the Cadillac is on the inside, but that becomes the outside through this fast sweeping section, and Bamber has to pull out of it as Conway makes a scintillating pass, looking as calm and confident as ever. Just behind, however, Bamber is still pushing as hard as he can. This track on its own is a huge challenge, though. With this traffic, it makes it so much more challenging. And as they head into turn 1, we can just see this absolute gaggle of GT3 cars. Conway makes his way past that BMW, with Bamber going around the inside of the BMW through his fast right-hander into the S's, and this is where you can lose a huge amount of time if you're just unlucky with traffic. You can see here, Bamber eases off the throttle as he gets in behind that McLaren 720S GT3, goes around the outside to this double apex right-hander. We can see how much time he lost to that Toyota just through that one little sequence of corners. One of the big keys to this race is going to be not only surviving, but thriving in this GT3 traffic. And as Bamber exits this sweeping section, he can make his way past another McLaren and down the hill to encounter more of this GT3 traffic. It seems absolutely incessant at this point, but that is obviously the nature of multi-class racing and why we love it so much. And as Bamber stretches the legs of this Cadillac, going down the back straight here at CotA, we can look in the top right-hand corner and see that we are nearly 1 hour into this race, and Bamber is still close behind this Toyota Hypercar out front. With Conway now encountering GT3 traffic in the form of the 92 Porsche through that left-hander. Bamber closes in on the Porsche as well, but is not able to overtake as they make their way into this tricky, tight double apex left-hander. Back on board the Cadillac Hypercar, Bamber sweeps his way around the outside, the old Texas two-step on that Ford Mustang. Now, with nearly an hour of the race complete, pit stop strategies are about to play out, and Bamber is going to be the first one to throw the cards down on the table in this game of Texas Hold'em. He slams on the brakes and hits the pit lane speed limiter as he loosens his seatbelt and pulls gently into the pit box. Now, an early pit stop and an early driver change will mean that they have to put less fuel in the car and mean that they'll have a slightly quicker pit stop than the rest of their hypercar competition. This could allow them to jump a few of the cars ahead and to gain positions during this pit stop sequence. And with the team electing to only change the left side tires, Alex Lynn is dropped down and sent on his way. As Alex Lynn rejoins the race circuit, he has to quickly start putting temperature in these left side tires so that he can close in on the cars that are still out on track. And as he exits the turn 1 hairpin, we can see a little wiggle of the steering wheel as he is struggling for grip on these colder tires. But with Alex Lynn able to quickly put temperature in his tires, he is now hunting down the cars ahead. And we can see the number 12 Hertz Team Jota Porsche, which will take over the Cadillac Racing program at the end of the year, exiting the pits and going through turn 1. With Alex Lynn up to speed, this Porsche is a sitting duck through that fast-moving right-hander, and Alex Lynn closes in on the number 12 car. Through this high-speed section, we can see that that gold Porsche just isn't able to work its tires the way this Cadillac can. Unfortunately for Alex Lynn, he has to sit behind this Porsche through this fast-sweeping section of corners because there's just nowhere to overtake. Finally, as they make their way through this fast-sweeping left-hander, Alex Lynn can unleash the power of this Cadillac and try to get past this number 12 Porsche. Into the hairpin, Ilott peeks to the inside of that Lexus, but isn't able to make the move. The Lexus runs a bit wide and compromises the exit of the number 12 Porsche. With Alex Lynn getting the better exit, he is now firmly in the draft, ironically trying to overtake the team or replace them at the end of the season. Alex Lynn looks around the outside, the Porsche brakes late, but it's too late! Callum Ilott slides off the course, and Alex Lynn is easily through and up into 11th position. With the stint continuing, the number 2 car will continue to gain positions as others come in to make their first pit stop. Speaking of pit stops, De Vries is now aboard the number 7 Toyota and exits the pits just ahead of the number 2 Cadillac. As he accelerates, we can see a little wiggle of the steering wheel as those rear tires are screaming that they are out of grip, with Alex Lynn now sweeping around the outside into turn 1, gaining a position on the number 7 Toyota. And as they go through the fast sweeping right-hander, we can see another little correction from Nick De Vries, who is struggling for grip on cold tires in his number 7 car. Now, about half an hour into the stint, De Vries has put temperature in his tires and is putting pressure on the Cadillac as they make their way through traffic in the high-speed S's. Lynn goes around the outside of one of the McLarens as De Vries has to slam on the brakes to avoid making contact through that sweeping left-hander that marks the end of the high-speed S's. The number 12 Porsche trying to make a move on the number 7 Toyota, but is blocked by that Mustang as Eilot looked around the outside of De Vries and gets a little bit of oversteer on the exit, with the Toyota now able to pull away, with Lynn ahead of both of them as they make their way down the long back straight. Into this tight left-hander, and we can see the Toyota and Porsche line astern behind the number 2 car, with all 3 of them chasing down the number 15 BMW of Marco Wittmann. Wittmann makes his way through that double apex right-hander into the double apex left-hander as he gets a little oversteer through the apex, trying to make the over-under work on that Lexus GT3 car. The tires are just starting to run off on this BMW as he's stuck behind a Porsche GT3, that Cadillac now looming large in the mirror of this number 15 BMW. Through this fast left-hander, and the number 2 car is all over the 15 BMW. And as they make their way through the final slow-speed left-hander and onto the front straight, Alex Lynn is firmly in the draft of the number 15 BMW. As they look up this humongous hill into turn 1, Lynn looks to the outside, but then peeks up the inside of the number 15 car and sweeps his way past the 15 BMW, with De Vries following closely behind in his number 7 Toyota. Through that downhill sweeping right-hander, Lynn is easily ahead as they make their way into the high-speed S's. De Vries, who is just behind, is pressurizing Wittmann, the number 15 car, who clatters the apex curb through that left-hander, struggling with the rear end of his number 15 BMW as he gets a snap of oversteer, trying to put the power down coming out of the high-speed S's. De Vries makes his way past and squeezes past the Iron Dames Lamborghini as well as he breaks late into the hairpin past the Heart of Racing hometown team there in the Aston Martin. And looking back from De Vries' car, we can see that Eilot has also made his way through past Wittmann, who is struggling with the rear end of that BMW. Now, with nearly 2 hours of this Lone Star Le Mans complete, Alex Lynn is continuing his charge to the field and closing in on the number 20 BMW and number 50 Ferrari just out in front. Through this low-speed section that ends the lap, the Ferrari and BMW are stuck behind slower GT3 cars, as we can see that number 20 BMW sweeping around the inside, which becomes the outside of that AF Corsa GT3 Ferrari. Alex Lynn easily makes his way around the outside of the Ferrari, leaving plenty of space on the exit. And through the fast left-hander, Alex Lynn pops into the pit lane once again, laying his cards on the table in this long game of Texas Hold'em. This Cadillac crew only has 2 drivers, and with it being such a hot day, they are choosing to rotate the drivers at every pit stop to keep them as fresh as possible when they're in the car. So, with Lynn scooting his way out, we have Bamber hopping in once again to take over the reins of this number 2 car. And with the team this time installing 4 fresh tires, Bamber waits for the pit stop to be complete, the car to be dropped, before launching on the electric motor and firing up that beautiful V8 engine. And this is when the early pit stop can be a real issue, because while he is warming up his cold tires, others are on hot tires and pumping in fast laps. So he needs to quickly get up to temperature to be able to compete with the cars as they come out of pit lane. With Bamber heating up his tires on track, the battle is heating up between the 20 BMW and the 50 Ferrari, who is caught behind a Corvette GT3 car through that tight left-hander. But through the double apex right-hander, he's able to squeeze past, but squeezes the Corvette GT3 slightly wide, with Rene Rast poking his nose up the inside of that number 82 Corvette through the double apex left-hander. The Corvette misses its braking point and hits the rear of Miguel Molina in the 50 Ferrari and nearly collects Rene Rast in the 20 BMW as well, who's able to sweep around the outside of Miguel Molina. Now, with the Ferrari chasing closely behind, the Toyota is entering the battle as well, just behind the number 50 car. On the next lap, the 50 Ferrari pulls its way into the pit lane and unleashes De Vries to catch up to the rear of that number 20 BMW. With Miguel Molina in the pit lane, he pulls into his box and hands over to Nicholas Nielsen. As we can see in the background, just like the number 2 crew, this Ferrari team has elected to change all 4 tires during this pit stop. So with the tires installed, the car is dropped and Molina is on his way and exits the pit lane just ahead of this number 2 Cadillac. But we can see a little wiggle at the rear of that number 50 Ferrari as Nielsen struggles to put the power down coming out of the pits. He is tiptoeing his way through turn 1 as Bamber sweeps through on much hotter tires. Nielsen just isn't able to lean on his tires, and Bamber looks around the outside as they head into the S's, but has to back out of it to avoid making contact. As I said, this is a single file section of the track. You just cannot overtake through here. Through the right-hander that leads into the final left-hander they go, and Nielsen gets a bad exit on his cold tires. Bamber has the run, looks to the inside, but Nielsen defends down into the hairpin. Bamber goes around the outside and makes the move stick on the number 50 Ferrari as Nielsen left him room on the exit. Looking back from this V8-powered American hypercar, we can see the nose of that red number 50 Ferrari of Nicholas Nielsen, who is chasing closely behind and peeks to the inside of the number 2 Cadillac, but is not able to complete the move. Through this low-speed section, we can see the Cadillac catching up to the Ford Mustang, and he runs a really interesting wide line through the first apex of this double apex right-hander so that he can sweep past on the exit around the outside of the Mustang, who leaves him space just barely. But Molina now has the run as they enter the triple apex right-hander, is close to the rear of that Cadillac, but on his cold tires just understeers through this section, with Earl Bamber now pulling away in the number 2 car. They make their way into the final corner on this racetrack. A slow left-hander over a crest. The car loses grip and understeers on the exit as you make your way onto the front straight. And back on board the number 2 Cadillac, we can look to the pit lane exit and see that the number 20 BMW is exiting the pit lane. Bamber closes in on that 20 BMW, struggling for grip just like the Ferrari was. Through this fast right-hander, Bamber goes around the outside of Robin Frinz, who has to back out of it as they enter the S's on his cold tires. Bamber now up into 3rd position with the BMW shuffled back to 4th place and with a Ferrari hot on its heels through the fast left-hander, and we can see that BMW just struggling for grip. Nicholas Nielsen goes around the outside through that right-hander. I said you couldn't make a pass through the S's, but Nicholas Nielsen, thankfully, has proven me wrong once again. An immaculate pass around the outside of Robin Frinz allows Nicholas Nielsen to get ahead of the BMW and to resume chasing down the number 2 Cadillac once again. A bit lost in this pit stop shuffle is that now the number 7 Toyota is directly ahead. We can see it right there going to the left-hander, directly ahead of Earl Bamber. And as this stint comes to an end, that Toyota is still just ahead of Earl Bamber as he pulls into the pit lane, now halfway through the race, and re-accelerates before slamming on the brakes. With 2 fresh tires and Lynn back aboard, that V8 engine refires one more time, and Lynn is sent back on his way. But as he re-accelerates, we can see there are a few hypercars making their way past. There's the Alpine number 35 car that just flashed through turn 1. We can see a Porsche GT3 car looking for a way around, but unable to do so. One downside to this pit strategy is by pitting slightly earlier, they have not only fallen behind some of the slower hypercars that have only pitted twice, but they're now actually directly racing with them and potentially being held up by these slower hypercars. As they make their way through that fast left-hander, we can see the 9X8 number 93 car of Mikael Jensen, who is now just behind this number 2 car. And as they make their way down into this hairpin, we can see the number 93 car closing in and then passing Alex Lynn. Again, this 9X8 still needs to make one more pit stop as he gets a big slide on the exit. That 9X8 really struggles putting the power down coming out of these slow corners. So, going back to my point, this number 2 car is now battling with slower hypercars that have yet to make their third pit stop. This could potentially hold up and hinder the number 2 car's race performance. And now, if we look in the mirror one more time, we can see that Nico Lapierre and the number 36 Alpine is also looking to make his way past. Through these low-speed corners, we can see that 9X8 is just starting to pull away. And through the double apex left-hander, the Alpine is just closing in. Through the fast right-hander where you miss the first apex, hit the second apex, and then ride alongside that third apex, holding tight before moving back over to the right-hand side. We can still see Lapierre looming large in the mirror of this number 2 car. The 93 car pops past one of the AF Corsa Ferrari 296s as Lapierre is now hounding Alex Lynn. Down the front straight, they sweep past the Ferrari GT3, but Lapierre is firmly in the draft and pokes his nose to the inside of Alex Lynn as they go up the hill into turn 1. The number 36 car squeezes its way past and drops Alex Lynn down to 9th position. As this lap continues, Lynn has begun to put temperature into his tires and closes in on the hypercars out front, which are battling their way through GT3 cars. They sweep their way past a BMW GT3, and Lynn pokes his nose up the inside into the final corner and is directly behind Nico Lapierre's number 36 Alpine now as he sweeps his way past a McLaren GT3 car. But as they hurtle their way down the front straight, that Alpine now pulls out front of the number 2 car, with Lynn having no chance to make an overtake through turn 1. Lynn runs right up to the edge of the track on the exit of turn 1, just tucked up behind that 36 car. Surely, by this point, Alex Lynn is losing time to the cars that have not pitted yet, as he is stuck behind these slower hypercars. They make their way around the Iron Dames Lamborghini. Lynn pokes his nose up the inside. He thought about backing out of it, but the Iron Dames Lamborghini left him the space at the apex, and he is able to continue chasing down the number 36 car. Down into the hairpin, and once again they are facing slower traffic in the form of a GT3 Corvette. Lapierre is stuck behind that number 81 car as they both now sweep their way past the GT3 machinery. While this battle is happening out on track, though, the number 50 Ferrari is in the pit lane, and Nielsen is complaining about something. It looks like his water was not connected. A hot day in Texas is the absolute last place you want to be with your water disconnected in a race car. But with the bottle reconnected and the pit stop going more smoothly, this number 2 car is still stuck in traffic. And if he doesn't make headway quickly, that number 50 car will be away and gone before he has a chance to defend his third position. Down through this fast left-hander, and we can see the Alpine pulls to the left side, finally into the pits to unleash this number 2 Cadillac. But as Lynn makes his way down the front straight, the number 50 Ferrari is already away and gone. And as the American flag flies above turn 1, the American hypercar loses its podium position to the number 50 Ferrari. This strategy of pitting early was always going to be a risky one, but ultimately one that they had to take, because this Cadillac crew only has one car, only one bullet in the chamber in a field of 18 ultra-competitive hypercars. So they have to be risky, they have to be aggressive if they want to make that home podium. The 9X8 runs wide through the hairpin though, and we can see once again Mikael Jensen just struggling with the rear of that car in low-speed corners, with Lynn now chasing down the French-made hypercar. And if you're wondering why I haven't mentioned the name of that French auto manufacturer, it's not because I don't like them or have any problem with them. It's because people absolutely hate the way I say it as an American. As the 82 Corvette, once again with an awkward moment in traffic, tries to squeeze Peugeot, there I said it, through that right-hander, with Jensen barely able to squeeze past the GT3 car. And on the exit of the left-hander, you can see now that Lynn has the speed in his Cadillac and is closing in on the 9X8 of Mikael Jensen, who is coming to the end of his stint aboard the number 93 car. They exit that fast right-hander, go through this sweeping left-hander, and that 9X8 pulls into the pit lane, unleashing Alex Lynn. By the time that all of the hypercars have completed their pit stops, this Cadillac will be in 4th position, but critically still behind that number 50 Ferrari. So, with 0 minutes left on the clock, this number 2 car will come home in 4th place in Chip Ganassi Racing's final American race in WEC. Not the podium result that they were hoping for, but an impressive result nonetheless, to come home in 4th position ahead of 14 other hypercars is nothing to turn your nose up at, especially for a single car crew. And for us American endurance racing fans, for an American team to run an American car with a V8 engine at CotA is always something to enjoy. Anyways, if you guys made it this far, I am absolutely thrashed. My voice is gone, but it was so much fun, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, so much for all the support, all the love, comments, subscribers, and especially the channel members. Thank you guys so much. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.